Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to my workshop, my workbench. I am working on the pickups for this custom jazz bass I've been working on. What's different about this jazz bass is the horns are longer. There is an extra scoop at the lower axis, and the heel end where it connects with the neck is a little more contoured as well. But right now we're looking at the parts for the pickups. These are kits that I got from Stewmac. And I already have one kind of put together here. I use my drill press to drive the magnets in. They're unmagnetized, and they also come with the eyelets uninstalled. So I've installed them myself. Now I don't have the proper tool, but I used a small punch, and then I went to a larger punch to just flatten it a little further, and then I just knocked it down a bit more with my hammer. And so nothing too elaborate there. Has everything you need for the kit. These are the magnets that come with it. Now you'll notice, if you won't be able to see it probably, but there is a beveled end on these magnets, and they'll go obviously facing up for the good clean look and to fit nicely into the pup covers. I'm using 42 gauge wire, heavy form wire. It'll be a standard typical vintage type wind with typical resistance to that. Anyways, I will continue to go through these pickups, and I will hopefully have some more shots of this and the winding process as well. Alright, I halfway through driving these pole pieces into the the fiber board or bobbin pieces. What I do to help with that is I'll take a 1/4" drill bit or something slightly larger than the hole, and I'll just bevel it so that when I'm driving it in, it goes in a little easier and it can sit on its own there, as you can see. Pretty easy, pretty straightforward, nothing elaborate, just down we go. What you'll see on the other side is it'll need a little bit of cleaning up just from some of the material just kind of being pushed along with it. Anyways, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. If you can almost do this by hand because they aren't really tight in the holes. But we'll continue on, and from here we'll dip it in a shellac as just a barrier before the winding goes on, and then we'll do the actual winding. Okay, the flat work and installation is all done. These bobbins are ready to go, be dipped in the shellac bucket. And once that's cured, they'll all be ready to go for a winding. I made sure all the pole pieces have beveled edges at the top. I checked my distances here, and I should have 17:30 seconds. Yes, I do. Kind of upside down because I'm doing this with two hands. 17:30 seconds. Make sure it's nice and even all the way along. I have a spacer for that, so we're good. There you go. From here we'll get ready to wind. Alright, this is me dipping in the bobbins into my shellac. I thought I had some traditional shellac, but I didn't. I just have this water base. So I'm just dipping in the bobbins, just dipping them in. Pretty exciting stuff, I know. So we'll let that sit and cure, and then we'll continue on. Well, here's a nice close-up view of the after dipping process. They look all nice and shiny and new, and they should sound spectacular, but we'll leave that till later, and we'll move on. Alright, welcome back. We are about to do some pickup winding. Here are some of the parts. We have our bobbins prepared and ready to go. My 42 gauge heavy form var wire. Electrosola is the product. My multimeter to check the DC resistance, and the wonderful homemade winder. Now it's pretty rudimentary. I'm using a sewing machine motor. I have a CD disc that I use for my counter. There it is there. Nothing too fancy or elaborate here at this point. At one point I will have to kind of close it in and get it down. This is a Vita root meter counter that I'm using. Here's my bobbin mount. And then we have our traverse limiters right here. This will all be done by hand, scatter wound, and we'll get ready to go. Here's a shot of the bridge pickup, bolted in, mounted onto the spindle. It's going to be clockwise, south up. The neck will be counterclockwise, south down or north up. And I will get it prepared with some wire, and then we'll do some winding. Okay, I'm going to attempt to do this while holding the camera, but as you can see I've begun the winding here. We're about or just over 100 winds, and I'm going to begin the rotation here. Right now it's not going very fast. We're at about 250 right now. And I'm just sweeping back and forth at a just fairly slow pace here. We'll just have a quick look here and have a look, see where we're at. So, as you can see, it's laying in nice and even. And everything looks okay here. There are quite a few things that dictate the tone of a pickup, from the type of wire you're using, the kind of coating, to the shape of the coil, the height and the width of the coil, how tight you wind, how the winding is laying down onto the bobbin itself, as well as the magnets and how hot you magnetize them, and the waxing of the pickup, how much wax goes on, how long it sits in the in your wax pot. So there's quite a few determining factors to the final outcome of your pickup. A lot of variables. Also the tightness of the winding and how many winds you put on it, of course. Anyways, I'm going to continue on. I'm going to shut the camera off and get these finished up. Well, we're at the 2000 wind mark right now, and I just thought I'd stop to see how the shaping is coming along. A couple things to keep in mind: that you don't want to have too much tension, because you're going to run into warping your bobbin, and you don't want that. And I'm doing mine with just my bare finger, so I've got a good feel of what's happening with the wire. I used to pinch it in between a piece of paper towel, but I find this a little more, I have a better feel of what's happening. And this is going to take me, I want to take this to about 9,000 winds and be around 7.8 or the high 7 resistance range. I just thought I'd stop and show you that. We will continue on. Looks good, doesn't it? Alright, so we're about halfway there at about 4,500 turns, and I did a DC check with the meter, and I'm at 4.02 with my DC resistance, and I'm getting a nice nice shape happening on that pickup. And we'll just continue on. When I gingerly sand the wire, when I coat it again, I just use some clear nail polish there. You can sort of see the beading of it there. Then I know it's insulated again and I can carry on. Well, next time you see me, we should have these all ready to go and ready for potting. Alright, we have a finished pair of wound jazz bass pickups. I'm about ready to solder up the leads. Pushback vintage type wire, and there we go. The winding went really well. We get a nice shape happening. Where are we here? There we go. And I'm quite pleased with that. They should sound really good. We're at about 8 with DC resistance on these. They still need to be potted, which will come next, and then they'll be magnetized, which I'll show you as well, and we shall move along. There we go, just some of the tools I'll be using this stage. I'll be checking my to make sure there hasn't been any problems with the soldering, that I have a good connection and the leads are giving me a reading. Okay, away we go. Alright, here's a shot of the leads. Top and bottom shot. The bridge pup is about an 8.2 and the neck pup is a 7.9. I think those are fairly good values that we can be happy with. Of course, it'll all come out once we string it up and test it. Now I'm just waiting for the wax to melt and then we can drop her in. Here's a live shot of some boiling wax. It's about halfway melted right now. I'm using about a 50-50 mix of beeswax and paraffin. I go to a local beekeeper and get little bricks of beeswax. I get about 5 pounds for about, I don't know, a couple bucks worth. So you don't have to spend a lot on it. And we want to get to about 140 to 150 degrees with that wax. Any hotter, you start to cause problems with the coating on the wire and warping of the bobbin. Anyways, just thought I'd show you that. As soon as that's all nicely melted down, I'll drop in one of the pickups. Alright, so we have our first pickup in for pot waxing. You see the gauge there is slightly under 150, and eventually it'll drop down to 140. I have it in for 15 minutes, and you can see bubbles happening there, and that's just the air escaping as the wax begins to fill around the winding. As I said before, you go too hot, you also run the risk of a fire, but you'll also warp the bobbin and maybe melt off the coating off your wire, and then you got a pooched pup. Anyways, we will continue on. Also, if you were to check the DC resistance, it would eventually, because of the heat, increase to a certain point. And so you want to check your DC resistance once it's totally cooled down. You can see bubbling nicely, so we know it's working right. There we go. Okay, the pickups have been potted. I've tested them, and there are no problems with getting a reading on my multimeter, so we're good there. Here's a finished pup. Aside from charging the magnets, cover's on. Fits quite nicely in there. And here is a uncovered pup right now. And one thing I do is I'll get a Q-tip, and with some of the molten wax, I'll just go over top of the leads where they come off the coil. The start and ending of the wind I'll just cover just for extra protection. There we go. We'll move on to charging. Okay, we're looking at a set of very powerful neomagnets. I'm stepping back about 4 or 5 feet, and I'm zooming in actually because I don't want to do anything to my camera. They are 1/2 by 1/2 by 3 inches long, and they are what I use for charging my pickups. And there they are in all their glory. They just don't have any life in them quite yet. We need to charge them. Now, you may read different ways of doing it. One way is to put just the disc magnets paired up on either side of a U-shaped device, either a vise or a handmade unit, and just sliding your pickup along the length of it and charging it that way. Or if you have the money, or you work for a big company and have your own, you have the huge electromagnets that do the magnetizing. Or you can do this method, which I think is a nice cross between the two and gives you a fairly good charge. What I do is I don't sweep the magnets across the length of it, but I present it and I go in towards it, and then I pull back. And then I do the other side, I come into it and pull back. Keeping it in line with the pickup. What that does is it keeps a more straight charge when you're doing it through a vise system setup, as you're sliding it through, you're going to start getting angles happening and different directions of that charge as it's coming away and out of the path. This way it's going straight in and straight back, and it's always going to be a top down or straight through type of charge, which I think is a lot more consistent across pole to pole. I found my very first set of pickups were done the old way, and I found that the centers were nice and strong, but the outsides got weaker. This makes a more consistent charge on all the magnets right across the board. So I'm not going to do it right now, I'm just showing you this, and that's how I do it. Most of these parts I've gotten off of eBay, and this is a kit from Stewmac, as I think I mentioned earlier. And I will put this video together. Hopefully it hasn't been too long, hopefully it's informative, it's helped you out. And you will also get to see me working on the P90 for the La Caliente build I'm doing, formerly La Cabronita. We've changed the name up, be a little more unique and distinguished. And actually, where is it? There it is right there. And there's the body for that base for these pickups. And we're pretty much set to go. We will talk to you later. Hope you enjoyed it.